All right. So next one says, hey, SM, I'm looking to diversify operations a bit and dabble into lead gen and get some mass page sites built out on subdomains for a specific industry. How would you go about charging this out and tracking leads and calls? Do you charge per call or route through your own phone to track and then pass off to client? I will end up about 5 domains each with 300 pages for cities, counties, etc. Thanks. Appreciate your response. Well, for my lead gen stuff, everything I do goes through my own call centers. They're all my own tracking phone numbers. All the calls go. I don't send any calls directly to contractors. I do everything through my own call center, and I have been for years. And it's so much better that way. So all phone calls get tracked because I have all tracking numbers. All my phone calls go directly to, I use Answer Connect, which is the call center or answering service that I've been using since I started using answering services, which was way back in, I think 2014, maybe 2013 or 2014, probably 2013. Anyway, it's been a long time. And so all the leads that I generate now are also tracked in high level. I was using Lead Simplify, which was Mike Martin's product for a long time. Well, that's not true. I still have Lead Simplify, and I know I still have some contractors in there purchasing leads. It's not very many because most everything goes through high level now. But so I have, multiple ways of tracking. I've got my call service because I use a combination of 3 different services, actually. Twilio through high level is what I've been using more recently, but I have a lot of phone numbers in CallFire, and also and a few numbers in CallRail. So I've got like it's kind of a mess, but the way that I have everything is I have different tracking phone numbers where I can track calls that way. But all my calls go to Answer Connect, and Answer Connect sends an email. So I have basically folders set up in my Gmail so that, each location, the emails for leads that have come to that specific location go into a particular folder. They're also now tracked. And sometimes, like I said, in Lead Simplify, I know I have some still have some contractors on for pay per lead that are buying lead credits and Lead Simplify. So that has kind of its own tracking dashboard. But then most everything I have now goes through high level because I don't have a lot of pay per lead buyers right now. Most of my tree guys now have been converted into revenue share, which is where I get a percentage of closed sales. And all of that is tracked through high level. So again, I've got multiple ways to kind of track everything. And so I have a few that do pay per call or pay per lead, which can be a call or a form fill, right? So somebody submitting a estimate request form. But I'd say probably 80 to 90%. So let's just use 85 as a number. I'd say 85% of our leads come through phone calls. Very, very rarely do we get form submissions, which is I really find interesting. Maybe it's probably just the industry I'm in, but like I would say as high as 90% of the leads are phone calls. So again, I have multiple ways of tracking all of that. I recommend that you always use your own tracking number and everything. And the part of the reason I don't like to send calls directly to contractors is because you end up in disputes over what was billable, right? There's always that can come up. There's also the reason why I like to have everything go through a call center is there's really 2 reasons. Number one is most of the contractors that I work with are they're tree guys, and most of tree companies that I work with anyways are small operations, and generally the owner of the company is a working owner, which means he's out in the field. He's either climbing trees or he's managing the crew or running equipment or whatever. So there's a lot of the times they'll miss phone calls because they're busy working and they can't answer the phone. And what's the quickest way to lose a lead? Don't answer the phone, right? And that's true. I mean, even if you have voicemail, it's very rare that people will leave a voicemail. Sometimes they do, but it's very rare. So you want the phone to be answered or else it's a wasted lead. It's not, the vast majority of the time, if the phone is not answered right away, then the lead hangs up and calls the next person. And sometimes they call the next person even if the phone is answered. So the point is, and one of the quickest way to convert a lead is to respond to it quickly. First of all, answer the phone. And like in my case, we have an answering service that answers the phone and takes all the call, basically the job details, the caller's name, phone number, service address, and a brief description of the job. And then they're told at the conclusion of the call, well, thank you. We're going to forward your information to our estimator, and he will call you back shortly to schedule an estimate. And that's the end of it. And so the next step is the lead information gets emailed and or texted to the contractor, and I get an email copy of it. And the contractor, if the sooner the contractor can reply to that lead data that got texted to them, so the sooner they return the call basically to schedule the estimate, the more likely it is that they're going to get the job. And so I have to always try to educate my lead buyers, or my revenue share contractors, to that the quickest way to increase conversions is to make sure that they're the first ones to call back, if that makes sense. Don't let a lot of time pass between when the lead information was taken by the answering service and when they return the call to schedule the estimate. You want the shorter that time frame, the more likely it is that they're going to get the job. So that's number one. The other reason why I like to run everything through a answering service is because if you guys have your own local businesses, like your own agency on Google Maps, for example, like your own Google business profile or whatever, if you're ranking, you're going to get hammered with solicitation calls, right? If you have a business that you own, whether it's your agency or whatever, and you're ranking, you get absolutely like relentlessly hammered with solicitation calls from all different kinds of bullshit. Robocalls, and in advertising agencies like Yelp and Angie and Lawn Starter. And now there's a lot of the apps out there that for like managing jobs and stuff that we get hammered with. Like House Call Pro is something that we get like relentlessly spammed on. Like every week we get at least 5 calls from House Call Pro, which is like a lead tracking app system. And anyways, it's a freaking nightmare. And so think about local businesses. They get hammered too, which is precisely why I don't like to cold call, because they already get enough spam calls that I don't want to pile on and add to that. This is why I stopped doing like calls and voice drops for prospecting. I just go straight with cold email, because otherwise, or in direct mail actually, but because just people get hammered with solicitation calls all the time, and it drives me up a wall. So I can't imagine, and imagine what business owners feel like, right? And that's why I don't want to be part of that. So the same thing goes with the tree contractors. Whenever years ago, before I started using an answering service, I would just send the calls directly to a contractor. Well, a lot of those calls are spam calls. And so their phone rings off the hook all day long. And so one of the ways it makes my leads more attractive to tree guys is because I tell them, like, all my calls are screened. The only time that you're going to get a notification is when it's a valid lead. It's a pre-screened lead. Like, it's, you know what I mean? Like, in other words, their phone will give them a notification from a text message or an email or both that states that they've got a lead. But that's the caller's information, the service address, and a description of the job. That's it. So like, there's their phone's not getting blown up with a bunch of solicitation and robocalls, right? And so I can always charge a higher price, and I have for years, because I can offer exclusivity of leads, or I can also say that they're pre-screened leads, so that they're not going to have to field a bunch of crap calls, shit calls, so to speak. So that's the way that I do everything. And I have been for many, many years that way. I haven't sent any calls direct to a contractor in probably at least 8 years. So that's how I do it.
Real quick, I just wanted to say too, that the wording, I'm not saying they shouldn't do this, but the wording, you want to dabble into lead gen, it scares me a little bit. So hopefully it's just something on the side. You want to see if you like it or not. But I think if you dabble into lead gen, you're going to have a tough time. So hopefully it's just kind of the way you're phrasing it. But it's very competitive. A lot of work goes into that. So I would say if you're doing it for fun, you just want to see how it works, that's one thing. But if you're thinking you're just going to dabble into it for some quick revenue, that you might want to take it a little bit more seriously.
Yeah, it's not, it's one thing to build the assets. It's another to get them performing and generating leads. It's another to get the leads monetized. You have to be, you have to build some systems and for that and some processes like, for outreach and all that. And it's, again, like a lot, especially, I don't know which industry you're in, but in the contracting industry, they get hammered with calls from formerly Home Advisor, and now it's Angie, and then also Yelp. And, just, again, they're hammered all the time with solicitation calls from lead gen companies too. So you have to do some things to stand out. Or else they immediately, and that's kind of like the directory stuff, which I've, been talking about for the last, year and a half, works so well because you can initiate a conversation with your target prospect using the directory out as an outreach method. Like, hey, I'm a tech specialist or a support tech or whatever with the directory name. I'm just trying to confirm your company's contact information for your free listing on the whatever directory. And that lowers their kind of defenses, right? To where they're more apt to communicate with you without being like, again, in the tree industry, those guys will cuss you up and down in a heartbeat if they think you're trying to sell them something. And they're not bashful or shy about it. So, I had to find different ways to kind of initiate a conversation, and the directory outreach method that I've developed has been the most successful. As far as, again, back to just charging, I do still have some contractors that purchase on pay per lead, and they all run through Lead Simplify, which is Mike Martin's product. If you're talking about masspage stuff, you're probably familiar with it anyways, but Lead Simplify is a good service. It's a good app for pay per lead, because all they do is like, your contractor or your lead buyer can register a free account, and then you can even send them some free test leads for like sample leads. And then what they do is just purchase lead credits from inside the dashboard, and then they can, you set however many credits you want to sell the lead for. So for example, if it's, 4 credits or whatever, then they can purchase 100 credits or whatever it is, depending on what sort of packages you set up. And then they can look at like redacted lead information. It'll give partial information about leads that are available in the system, and they can determine whether or not they want to purchase it. And if they do, they click the purchase button, it deducts credits from their account, and then it will reveal all of the contact information for that particular lead. And that works well. For a while, I was doing a lot of heavy stuff through Lead Simplify, but I've reduced, through that process, I identified my best lead buyers, the ones that were consistently buying credits. And so they were happy with the leads, and I reached out to those. And once I developed my process using high level, I knew that I had a much better system in place for tracking leads so that I could start offering revenue share, which is my preferred method for when selling leads, because I make so much more money that way. And so using high level, I'm able to, I force my lead buyers that are on the revenue share model to subscribe to a sub account in my high level account, and it's $100 a month, and that's what I charge them. And that just kind of offsets some of the answering services, the cost or for using Answer Connect. And then it also gets them used to using the app for managing leads. And so it's kind of a way to hook them to me. And it's just $100 a month, which is great for them. And then again, everything is tracked through my high level app. So when they hit the job completed, so there's a 5-stage pipeline, and the last stage is job completed. And when they move that contact record into the last stage of job completed, that's what notifies me that they owe me money for that particular job, if that makes sense. So it's kind of like, that is my preferred way. I've only got, I think 4, maybe 5 contractors that are still purchasing leads from inside Lead Simplify. Everybody else, my best contractors, have all been moved to revenue share. And that's my preferred, always has been my preferred method. So I don't know if that helps or not, but hopefully it did.